Folks are registered.
All right, everyone, if you're just joining us, we are discussing our previous session and our tables, and we're going to go around just like we did earlier this morning. We're just going to ask for one person, a different person, if you prefer, to report out what it is that your group took away from the discussion that we just had with Colum and James. So we're going to start over here on this side of the room first this time. So if y'all want to just tell us a little bit about what your takeaways were from the previous session.
So some of the takeaways have to do with Fort Worth is currently revamping our city's comprehensive plan. And so some of the things that we're looking at regarding housing have to do with accessory dwelling units, creating overlays for form factors so that ADUs, duplexes, triplexes, fourplexes, while they're allowed within single-family development, they would have to meet the form overlays within specific districts, which can help tackle some of that NIMBYism. And then looking at some of the larger scale developments, we still have 165,000 almost acres in our extraterritorial jurisdiction, and looking at multiple form factors within those developments, encouraging density and requiring different mixes of housing so that we're tackling the missing middle housing problem. We know that a lot of our community members want townhomes. They want those form factors, but they're not being built. And we hear a lot of excuses from the development community on why they're not marketable, why they don't appraise well. And so that's another thing that we're working on is addressing that through the Tarrant Appraisal District and helping to educate appraisers on why these form factors should be appraising at the correct values and how they do add value to communities. So those are a few things that we're working on right now.
Great, thank you.
Thank you so much for sharing. Going to the next table here. Who's going to
taking
take
the mic?
this?
I'll do it because one of the speakers is here, and so he has a conflict of interest. So, and I guess, do I have to stand up or can I do
Please.
it? Oh, all right. I'll get my exercise while I'm at it. Can I do squats?
Sure.
No. So what we talked about a little bit was the cyclical nature of housing as an issue, and how sometimes when you implement policy decisions to address one challenge, like say quality of housing, there are unintended consequences of making that same housing that you fixed up because it was untenable and didn't meet code then becomes higher grade housing, and it prices the folks that really need to be in that housing out. And so I think the takeaway is to really look at unintended consequences as you're looking at things as housing policy.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for sharing. All right, we're coming to this middle table here.
Andrew Clements from Austin, Texas. I don't know if we got to the big topic that we were supposed to address, but I heard from the session the inherent conflict between economic growth and the environment. And the economist said there's a trade-off because that's the dismal science, because it always says that there are trade-offs for decisions. But I wanted to ask, 48 years ago, I took a rain science course in economy when I was a freshman, and the professor introduced the concept of what's wrong with 0% growth or 0.5 or less growth, because nationally we hear we want 2 or 3% growth, and I always hear there's almost an emergency if we drop to 2.5 or 2% growth. And this person asked, what's wrong with 0% growth? What's wrong with 0.2 or 3% growth and just maintaining? And I question, do we have to have 3 or 4% growth in our economy, regionally or nationally? Can we try 0% or very low growth and maintain and see what that is?
Is there a better balance to be
Here we go.
had? All right, we're going to pass it back to Jimena's table.
Colin, do you want to respond?
Sure. Could I?
Sure.
That's a great question. Since you brought me up, great question. My quick thoughts on that. It's a free country. People are free to move about, right? it's not real likely that either the state legislature or even if they somehow had the power, the city council of Dallas would declare literally, we will not allow the population to grow, right? I can't even imagine what the future, like limit how many children you can have, or all kinds of crazy stuff. Not going to happen, right? But what we can actually say in the real world of, like I mentioned from the stage there, it is truly possible for a place, okay, whether it's a country, state, region, city, neighborhood, to achieve zero growth. I mean, it's eminently possible. It's actually not hard. All you do is simply allow no new housing to get built at all. And you're guaranteed to have that outcome. Like Highland Park and University Park have literally, I just looked at numbers going back to 1980, they have grown exactly 0.0% since 1980 in both cases. So that you could write that large, it is doable, but here's the thing. Before you ever got to the true zero growth, you would go from, I don't know, maybe 40% of people in the city of Dallas being housing cost burdened, as the federal government defines the term, like spending more than 30% of their income on housing. You'd go from, 40% to maybe California levels, 60% and more, right? That happens truly in American cities today, in LA and San Francisco. So we can engineer 0% growth if we want. But I do think that if zero growth in population or very, very low growth would make it easier to achieve the ecological sustainability we want. It's true. And we will trend towards low growth even if we don't try to make it impossible to build new housing, because the overall U.S. population is going to grow really, really slowly now. That seems to be kind of baked. So I kind of think your vision of like get to a better trade-off is to some degree going to take care of itself because of very low birth rates and extremely low immigration. Not that I'm favoring either of those things, I'm just making a prediction.
I'm going to address that from an activist point of view, because I know a lot of the people down in Austin back in the day who really championed the no growth movement in Austin many years ago. And not let's say they regret it, but they do question some things that happened. Could be traffic got worse in Austin because all the growth went to the suburbs, and there was no regional mass transit system put in. So there's some things that happened there as a result of that movement that they did not anticipate. And here in Dallas, I think we try to take the opposite point of view. It's just growth is inevitable because so many people were moving here. We couldn't stop the movement of people coming here. But we could try to build a transit system, which we did. We could try to deal with some issues of saving open space, which we've done. So I think it's a counterbalance between the two. Of if we stop growth, well, there's going to be some movement there, and that movement in this case, in Austin's case, all went to the suburbs. Now that's happened here in North Texas, but we did at least try to find some way to make that growth manageable. Well, I think where we have not had the effect we'd like to is we just continue to sprawl further and further out until we've covered over so much of North Texas. But just from an activist point of view, the Dallas groups took one point of view and said, it's going to come anyway, let's try to manage it. Austin folks said, let's just stop it. And we're not really able to. It also created for the suburban boom and sprawl in Austin and the counties around it. So that's from the activist point of view of what happened in those two cities. Okay, another table here.
What we ended up talking about at our table is how it's not just Dallas. It is a interconnected system here in the North Texas area where the policy, the municipal policy in Dallas, say around land use, around what homes can be built in the city, also affects the suburban areas. Because if Dallas is not allowing us to build up, then that growth will go outwards to these other suburban areas. And so we need to simultaneously be thinking about urban land use policy in our existing cities while also doing the work that TNC is doing, that also the Native Prairies Association is doing, of protecting the most vulnerable habitat that is on those urban fringes. So we're just kind of talking about that inherent interconnectedness of all of these different problems.
Thank you, Ian. Over here. Here we go. Excuse me. Thanks, Ben.
Good morning.
So my name is Ben Stewart. I'm with an engineering firm called Stantec, and we do engineering, architecture, also environmental work. And this column is in the wrong place. I do not like not being able to see people that I'm talking to. So I came in late to this conversation, but I was talking with Cullen during the break. I was born and raised, I was born in Dallas, raised in Arlington, and then I spent a long time out of state in school, lived on both coasts, spent about 10 years in LA. So I've also lived in Austin. I've seen a lot of different areas grow and explode over the last decades, especially DFW. And the conversation that we were having was with the trends post-pandemic, the moving trends and the work trends, specifically the move away from downtown areas. What does that mean for a downtown like Dallas? And my specific passion is repurposing and redeveloping properties, infill areas, things like that for different uses. And what are we going to see in terms of commercial real estate and potentially being used for residential and things like that? I think that's a conversation that's top of mind, because we talk about things like money and budgets, and if you don't have the tax base, you're not going to have the budget. So I think that's going to be a real challenge that Dallas is going to continue to face for a while. But all of these conversations are big conversations, right? Like we could sit here and talk for days about any one of the topics that Cullen and James were talking about. So this is great. I'm just happy to be here and grateful to be part of the conversation with you all. So I hope I get to meet all of you.
Thank you, Ben.